Good to have everybody with us this morning. We're going to get started. And I guess others will straggle their way in. I'll point them out as they come in the door. Good morning. It's good to have everybody with us this morning here on this first day of the week as we're getting in today to our new curriculum. We're going to be starting it. We're excited about the beginning of that and what's going on with it. And it'll be there's a lot happening with this. I'll just say this. There's as we go through it, you see it be a little different. We'll have questions and so on, and do those with it. And as like today, I'll have a few questions at the end. But starting Wednesdays, after we get through one lesson, we'll have review questions before the class. So we'll have review questions every week, every class, and so give you an idea of where we are and what's going on with it. This is, like I said, this is a curriculum that kind of trains the brain to memorize stuff very easy. And you'll see as we're going through what I'm talking about. And we don't look at it in order. We don't go Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and we'll start Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. It's not done like that. It's kind of pushed all over the place and around, because as we look to those areas, we go around it, you'll see it's easier actually to memorize it that way. And a lot of the memory goes with understanding, like some of the main characters in the Bible, of where they are in the Bible, what time of we would see in our calendar-wise, as we would find, you'll see that I'll have up here after a little bit, the timeline that is in every classroom. So I'll explain as I go through each one, and so as we look at that. So just kind of get started a little bit here, as those teaching the class, that will be the teenagers also as teaching their class. You'll find and understand the teachers for Ed and Bill, and Greg is our substitute for the class. And so, and I got your book, by the way, Greg, so I got it for you. And so we'll get an idea how to do this in the order I go. So usually what I do is I start, for the teachers that are here, you have, which is according to the dictionary. And I start there and then kind of move through it. But as we think about the dictionary, Genesis is, of course, the first Old Testament book in the Bible. And what does it mean? What does Genesis mean? Beginning. That's exactly right. And the first five books make up the division of the law. And those first five books, who were they written by? Moses, exactly. And now was Moses there during Genesis? Nope, he wasn't. So all this is given to him by God. What's right? The whole book of Genesis, we see God inspired him to write those words. The main characters in Genesis, this is kind of a way to look at it and memorize it. The beginning of Genesis, you have Adam and Eve and Noah. Those are the main characters in the beginning. The middle of the book, you have, of course, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We would see those, the three fathers, in a sense, what you would say, basically the middle of Genesis. And then the ending of Genesis, you end with Joseph. And we see all that going through with Joseph. At this time, there was no written law. The only way they received anything was spoken by God. His will was spoken to certain individuals through time and history. And we also learn that God often revealed His will, and this is important, through dreams when somebody was asleep or visions when they were awake. And which brings us to where we are today, talking about this area of Joseph. And that's what we're going to start with. We're starting in Joseph in chapter 37 of Genesis, where the main area will come through Genesis chapter 37, 1 through 11. And you may be thinking, like, why are we starting with Joseph? That's the end of Genesis. And it's because it's an integral, like I said, it's a part that most everybody knows. Everybody realizes when you think about Joseph and so on with that. In fact, I want us to look at a couple questions here before we actually get into the study of what we see here. And this is basically be at the top of the teacher's guide at the top. And we see here that there's drills. The drills, name the four divisions. Just see who could do this. Name the four divisions of the New Testament. Anybody? Start with the first one. Just give me the first one. Gospels. There we go. Just yell it out there. There we go. That's the first Gospels. What is the second one? Okay, Gospels would be the earthly life of Jesus. That's what it's actually talking about. What would number two be? History. History would be found where? What book? Acts. Book of Acts. That's exactly right. So history. It's the history of the of the early years of Christ's church, of the church, and what was going on with it, what we see. We've been in that. We've been dealing with that on our classes. Number three. What was number three? The epistles, the letters. All the letters written, of course, by Paul, and then all the general letters that are written to the churches and individuals. And the final one would be what? Revelation, which is called prophecies. There we go. That's what I thought I heard it, prophecy. And so that's what we find there that we have with those. So let's just get an idea real quick, just kind of see where you are. Everybody's on top. We're doing great. Everyone's getting A's already. All right, so, you know, it's great to start off with an A. The thing about it is trying to do what?
Keep it.
Keep the A. There we go. All right, so that's what we find. So, all right, so let's move into this for just a moment. I'll just kind of give you an idea. The reason I'm going to show this right now is we'll be doing this from time to time. I'll show you where we are in our classes in each one. So right now we're in this area here, 2000 BC. We're actually at 1900 BC when we're looking at. You see the 12. These would be the 12 tribes, 12 sons of Jacob, of course. And we'll talk about them. We're going to talk, of course, about them with Joseph this morning. And you can see how each one does, how it gives you the main things that were going on up here. I'm getting everybody's way. And then, of course, the names that would go with them that we find and that we see this. Creation, of course, we put question mark. We put 6,000 to 8,000 years, somewhere in that area. We don't know the exact date, so that's why you see a question mark there. And then it brings you, oops, let me go back here. And then it brings you through all these other areas of time that you see. And we'll skip around. In all the classrooms, they have this except for the very little ones. This is each person. They put their name here and then the date of the year right now. So they get an idea they're part of it, what's going on. So let's go ahead also show you this, where we're at. This is the map. Each classroom has their own maps too. They have them on the wall. The Great Sea, that's what you'll hear sometimes in the Old Testament. It's the Mediterranean Sea, of course, that we all know. Land of Canaan, very important to remember. Land of Canaan right here. In this area, Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea. Remember the Dead Sea is always below Sea of Galilee. And the Jordan River runs into it. You have, of course, the Sinai Peninsula. We'll remember that. We'll talk about Moses and so on, the law being given. You have Goshen, the Nile River, and this is Egypt, is what you would see here. Very important to know this because we're going to learn about this area under Joseph. We'll see. Go ahead.
I know some of the names have not changed in these many thousand years. Some of them have. Could you circle where right now in 1949 Israel was quote-unquote reestablished as the Gaza Strip?
Right, so we have the Gaza Strip be over in this area over here is what we have and what we see. So that's exactly asking where it was established, what we find there. And they remember Israel didn't keep, what Israel is today is not what it was back in the Bible times. We see they have just a little strip of it, and then you have the divisions over Palestine and so on, and everything happening there. Also, you have the Red Sea with the fork here, the fingers up like that piece, Persian Gulf, and the Caspian Sea. Those are all important to understand and remember because we'll learn those through the class, not today, but through other classes as we go through that. All right, so let's go to here. So we're going to talk about Joseph's coat. And the reason this is important when we think about this is that most people, when they think about Joseph, guess what they think about? They think about the coat. And, I'm not talking just Christian. I'm just talking people that go to church. Most people know it because of all the plays that have come from it, even movies and so on. And so you see this. And we're going to talk about this coat. A lot of times we call it the coat of what? Many colors. And it's really the way to look at it, it's the coat of patches. It was a lot of different patches of different fabric. And that's why it had the many colors, because they were all different colors. And we see here, we don't know exactly what it looked like. Everybody, usually does stripes and so on. They think that's the area of what they find here. Bill, go ahead.
I never saw the play, but on Broadway, a very popular Broadway show was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
That's right, the Technicolor, and that's with the lights and everything they do, and it's really cool. I mean, it is. And some of those, of course, some of the plays, some of the movies have taken kind of done their own thing with it, changed kind of the story and so on. And a lot of times they don't get the story right, and that's what's so important. They portray Joseph as a snotty brat, in the beginning, but he wasn't, and we need to understand that. We'll look at this as we go through it. So let's go ahead and get into this area first. The first area that we're going to look to in just a moment will be the generation of Jacob. Before I say that, let me just get you an idea of what's going on. We're going to look at events, of course, that led up to the hatred of Joseph's brothers. That is the main part of this lesson this morning. And everybody in here and the whole congregation is learning this morning about hate. Now, it's not good to hate. And we see what happens when you do hate and what takes place with it. So as we look at this, it is amazing, of course, how God can take shortcomings of a person and use them for His glory. And that's what we see happening. And also, we're quickly introduced to one of the sons of Jacob. This is just Joseph. Anybody have an idea how old he is?
17.
17. It's exactly right. 17 years old. And he's tending the sheep with his brothers. The implication of verse 2 is that Joseph is with all of his brothers except for one. And who is that one? Anybody know who that is? Benjamin. Exactly right. Joseph and Benjamin, of course, are from a different mother than all the others. They're from Rachel. And Rachel was Jacob's most, cherished wife. And that's what we see part of this with his sons. And so, as we understand, we are immediately told that not all is well with this family. This family's gonna, there's crazy things going on here and things happening. It's a family that is not in harmony. It's a family that is not living, righteously in a sense when you really look to it. So God knows about Joseph. God can read the heart of Joseph, of course. God understands these things, and He knows how Joseph would turn out. So that's what we're going to see Joseph being involved in this. So let's begin with the generation of Jacob. Let's go ahead and read this. Now I will say this, if you're going to read names, just so you know that. You're going to read names. Most of them are well known because of the 12 tribes, you said the 12 sons. And as we look at this, and what we find here with this area, of course, is that, I'll just say this. If you're going to say a name, like I said before, just say it like you know it. So someone go ahead and read this for us, please.
The sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant, were Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's maidservant, were Gad and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Paddan Aram.
Thank you. So as we do right there, we just want to introduce who they are, And notice it's not just Leah and Rachel. He had 2 maidservants also that he had children with. And we're not going to discuss all that right now, go through all that, but we see that. So let's go and get into 37, chapter 37, verses 1 through 11. And we're going to look at here, we're going to go and read through this, and then we'll come back and talk about areas, and we'll go to a couple of verses here and there as we go through it. So someone go ahead and read that for us, Genesis 37, 1 through 11, please.
Now Jacob dwelled in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. I'm having trouble with my glasses.
I figured I saw
His father was Zilpah, his father's wife, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age.
Yep.
Also, he made him a tunic of many colors.
All right.
But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to them. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. And behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright, and indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheep." And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and says, "Look, I have dreamed another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bow down to it." So he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
Thank you. All right, so as we go into this, we see this first area we said deals, the whole area deals with hate. And Bill, go ahead.
I didn't need a commentary to tell me, it hit me as soon as I read the 2 dreams. He probably had a feel or impression what his brothers thought of him, but he innocently told them about his dream. I mean, I can see the trust and the love, the kindness, and all the qualities that God loved so much about Joseph. When he revealed the dream to him, he was just honestly telling them, here's what I'm dreaming.
That's right. And with being, him and Benjamin, of course, being the youngest of them all, that's exactly right, 17 years old. He's 17 years old, you're just like, and remember, the dream came at night while he was asleep, because that's what you see, the dreams are while they're sleeping, visions are while you're awake. And we're like, he just wanted to let go. Hey, guess what I had a dream about? Have you ever told anybody about a dream? You ever been excited about a dream? told somebody about it, and, and you do that. And now there's, of course, more to these dreams that we're going to find, because it wasn't him just dreaming. God was giving him this dream. And we'll see as we go through that. Bill, go ahead.
My problem with dreams is I have vivid dream. I wake up and I can't remember it. Or number two, if I do remember, somebody says, you need to eat something before you tell me what the dream is. So I don't know.
I've never heard that before. That's interesting. So that's right. So as we look at this, many things seem to have brought on the hatred of Joseph's brother toward him. And the first problem was, of course, as we go with Joseph, is that he told on his brothers. He told on his brothers. In fact, let's look at this again. Verse 37, verse 2. Chapter 37, verse 2. I know we just read it. Let's read it one more time. Someone go ahead and read that for us, please.
Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with his sons of Belaam and the sons of Zillah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father.
Thank you. So as we look through this, most people say, okay, he's a tattletale. I mean, that's what they think about. Joseph being a tattletale. And this is where a lot of people get the story messed up. They think he's just a tattletale brat. Just a young brat, 17 years old. Not really, doesn't really, wants to think people look at him and everything with it. Joseph was not the one that brought those things on him. That's not what we see here. In fact, as Joseph brings this bad report about the activity of his brothers as they attend the sheep, which we don't know exactly, what was going on, what was taking place. There's a lot of different thoughts. We're not going to get into that. But some people want to blame Joseph, we said, for this. Calling him that tattletale, that slandering his brothers we see there. But this is not keeping with the record that we read about Joseph. It makes no sense to think about it like that. We'll see as we go through that. Bill, go ahead.
The brother's feelings against it. Doesn't it bring to mind a 14-year-old David coming to the battlefield and saying, hey, what's going on here? You let this guy tell us what to do, and you felt that feeling. Get back to the field and guard the sheep. You feel like the older brothers just thought they were better, smarter, and that E word and that J word, envy and jealousy.
That's exactly right. Envy and jealousy. And remember, it's too, the way we looked at the way things were back then. The oldest brother would be usually the one, or the oldest son would be the one to get what, usually? He would get everything passed down to him. The first fruits, we see that he would be in charge, basically. We find that. And we're going to go in a minute, that's not the case at all. So as we think about this, Joseph is constantly portrayed throughout the Bible as the innocent of the events that are happening to him. So we don't want to start off the account of Joseph by presuming that Joseph should not have told his father what his brothers were doing, because there is not any reason to put a negative layer on Joseph whatsoever. It was important probably that he told him. Maybe it was something bad going on, which it had to have been for him to come to that point. The second thing that causes hatred was that Joseph was favored by who? He was favored by his father over all his other sons. And in fact, look, verse 3 once again, we already read. Let's go ahead and read it again here. Someone go and read what it says for us.
And Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors.
Thank you. So as we look at here, Israel is Judah. That's what we see him there. And that was his name that God gave him. And it makes sense because you're going to have the people of Israel, all of Israel. And the 12 tribes are going to be, of course, sons and grandsons. And we see this happening and all that coming about. So Jacob of all people should have known the heartache that it caused by one parent favoring, one child over another. In fact, what was the story about his life? When he was little, who do we see? Who's his other brother? Jacob and Esau. And in Genesis 27, of course, we see Jacob and his mom Rachel, make up not his mom Rachel, Jacob and his mom, make up the point to steal Esau's birthright. Even though we know when we read it, Esau, of course, gave it away. He gave it away being really dumb, not paying much attention. But the process had already been put in place in their minds that they were going to do this, that this was going to happen. So he, without a doubt, understood how bad it was for one to favor others. And he saw the division that it caused in a family. But it didn't seem like he learned from it, did he? I mean, not at all. In fact, the gift of the coat would be, it's interesting, when we think of the gift of the coat, we think of it just like, oh, it's just a pretty coat. I mean, there's a lot more to this. In fact, putting the this coat on Joseph and sending him out basically put him in preeminence. You know, he was above his brothers is what we see happening. I'll tell you what I mean by that is you notice this, let me give you this comment that was found by an individual that, I don't know who, I can't remember, I had this in my notes from years ago, don't even remember who it was and wrote it, I couldn't find it, but so whoever it was, if you're online, great, you'll hear it, but if not, it's yours. All right, so the gift of the coat of many pieces or patches, you know, not colors is what really when it translates when you look at the Hebrew, or rather with a tunic with sleeves. That's the important part to remember. The tunic with sleeves was about the most significant act that Jacob could have shown to any of his sons, and he showed it to Joseph. It was a mark of distinction that carried its own meaning. For what it did, we find, is that it implied that the exemption, guess what, from? Labor. It shows that basically Joseph, in a sense, when he walks out in that, he's telling his brothers, or his dad is telling them, Joseph is your foreman. You know, Joseph is the boss, in a sense. And this is what we see was usually given to the oldest son, the heir, or the prince, you know, we would say, of, you know, the eastern clan, as we see eastern areas out there. And that's what we find. So what we learn is that instead of an ordinary workday clothing, which here's the importance, your ordinary workday clothing didn't have sleeves. They didn't wear sleeves, they didn't have sleeves. And it only came to the knees. Because what it did is it allowed you to really get active, you know, and work and do those things as we would find. And allowed men to do their work. Their coat with sleeves clearly said to others that the one wearing the person is a special, you know, distinction. You know, they don't have to do the work you're doing. And, you know, usually when you have a family and everybody's doing the labor work except for one, that's what you would think of them. You would think of them as the one in charge, as we would see that. So we can see pretty quickly why his brothers are so angry with him. And I don't even think it mattered what the dream would have been. They're going to get mad at him anyways because of what's going on and what we see with his dad. And so you explain a little more about the coat, of course, which will help us understand why his brothers are so angry. The outward importance of the father bestowed upon the son is that long sleeve cloak we said, and there's a name for it in the Hebrew. It's kithanuth. It's kithanuth. That's just the word by itself, kithanuth. But there's also another word put on to this one with the coat, and it's kithanuth hasam is the way it's pronounced. And the kithanuth is basically the undergarment of the tunic. So it's just the undergarment, which you would wear underneath, which usually was the sleeveless one, only knee length. But when you add the word hasam to it, it means one with long sleeves and goes all the way down to the ankles. Now, when you think about this for a moment, and I'm going to show you, this is kind of what it would be. And, you know, have you ever seen, you know, you look at the eastern tribes, Afghanistan and so on, you see them wearing things like this, you know, what they call the elders, you know, the elders of their communities, that they would say basically the leader of the tribe, as we find there. And you have that really in every area of the world where they have that set up in that system. Usually the one that's in charge is dressed better, you know, they're a little nicer. So I want you to notice it wasn't that the sleeves were just all the way down the wrist, but they were long like this. And that's where you got that length, that's where you got that down to the ankles. And I want to ask you, do you think it'd be hard to work in something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. So you walk out in that, and I know the man here in this picture is old. Joseph's not that old yet, doesn't have gray or anything. I just like the picture of the coat. It was a very good explanation to it. So this passum is the ankles and the wrist, and the tunic was sleeve and extended there. It was just, you could just see when he came out with his brothers. I mean, think about what it looked like when he walked out and his brothers saw him in that. They had been, look at that. Dad just loves him more than all of us. I mean, and you know, and that by itself is going to cause division. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, with what you're saying, the brothers seeing him dressed like this, they automatically knew that, hey, he has some authority that we don't. And that begins that riff.
Right.
Even though Joseph probably wasn't displaying it that way,
Yeah.
but that's what they saw.
And what this exactly right, what this does, this explains the anger of Reuben. I mean, you know, the oldest, you know, as we would see here with that, the things that went on with him and take place. Clifford, go ahead.
Yeah, they probably saw royalty when they saw that coat.
Yeah, oh, that's what you would think. Like here's the royal prince of our family, you know, coming out, and we see that. that. So that was some of those major causes of causing the rift in that family. The third major cause of this resentment was that Joseph and his sons, they were going to receive the blessing of the firstborn. Very important to understand. Because of what we see here, what was happening, they knew that he and his sons would receive it. And some of that had, of course, all that had to do with what we see with Reuben, what he did, but also what we find, what we see with the way Jacob basically with Joseph, the way he looked at it, Judah, excuse me. So let's go ahead and read this real quick. This gives us the direction of 1 Chronicles 5, 1 and 2. What happened? And remember now, this took place a little bit, a few verses before what we're reading right now when we look at Genesis 35 and 22. So I'm going to go ahead and read this for us, please. 1 Chronicles 5, 1 and 2, as it talks about Reuben, who was the firstborn and would have been receiving everything, but because of this and some other things, he did not. Would someone like to read that?
Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborns of Israel, he was indeed the firstborn, but because he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, so that the genealogy is not instead according to the birthright. Yet Judah prevailed over his brothers, and from him came a ruler, although the birthright was Joseph's.
Thank you. So, while it's not in chapter 49, and as we see, not until chapter 49 in Genesis that this transfer actually is formally stated by Jacob. That's when we see this happening and when it'll take place. The sin which brought about was written in 35. So I'm going to read this, 35 verse 22. Just 2 chapters before where we are now. Someone read that for us, please.
And it happened when Israel dwelt in that land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard about it.
Thank you. So this is what happened. This is where we see in Israel, of course, being, their dad and heard about it and what happened. And that was it. That's all it took. But at the same time, I think this, from what you read, from just what we see in the family going on, it gives, Israel an excuse, in a sense to say, Joseph's getting it all. But really you would think, who do you think would be the next one to get it? It'd be the second one born, Simeon. That would be like, it's going to go to him. But that's not the case. So, and it's not unlikely that Jacob expressed his intentions much sooner as we see this happening to his sons and even begin to give Joseph preeminence maybe in other ways. We don't know. We don't read about that. But it would make sense that that was already happening, which brings us to the fourth point. The fourth point. They were doing good on time. The fourth point of contention, and one that seemed to top all others, was, guess what? Joseph's what? Dreams. His dreams. The dreams, the coat was one thing, but now when they hear these dreams, they're thinking basically Joseph is talking as a person in charge at the top saying, hey, you know what these dreams are saying? I'm over all of you. That's just the way it's going to be. And that's really what we see in the dreams. And remember, God is using this to move Joseph to where he needs to have him. And do you think God knew the hatred that was going to be found in his brothers? Do you think it was God's fault that made the hatred in his brothers? God didn't do that. That hatred was already there. It started with the family. It started with the father. And we see this taking place. So the first dream, let's go back to this about these sheaves. And the sheaves would be like stalks, basically, is what we see, as you see them wrapped together and so on. So let's go ahead and read this again, Genesis 37, beginning in verse 6, please.
So he said to them, please hear this dream which I have dreamed. Very word, finding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright, and indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf.
Thank you. So this implied that the sons of Jacob, very simple, would bow down to Joseph. Right? It's that simple. That's what they would be doing. And the brothers did not like this at all. They already saw the way he was being treated. And they're saying, now even Joseph himself believes this. That's kind of where they're going at. And I believe you go back to what Bill said earlier, I think he was just excited. He was like, because look what he said, hear this dream that I had. It's kind of like that we see. But let's look at verse 8 now. Think about verse 8, how his brothers react to it. And someone go and read that for us, please.
And his brother said to him, shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you indeed have dominion over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his dreams and for his words.
Thank you. And see, I believe what they're doing here, that they're upset upset with the dream, but like I said, they're already upset. They see it headed this direction. They really do. Or else they wouldn't have done what they did with Joseph. You know, they wouldn't throw him in the pit. We all know about that story. So all that was going to end. And you know, it would have been one thing to stop there, but now Joseph is even going to go a step further. Let me rephrase that. God is going to go a step further through Joseph by stating not only the brothers will bow down to him, but who else would? His father and the mothers. Now, of course, he doesn't have his mother anymore, but the mothers that are there. So let's go ahead and read verse 9. So I'm going to read that for us, please, again.
Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and said, look, I have dreamed another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me.
So now he's going through all this. You know, it's like, hey, I had another dream. You know, they had been just like, oh, great, another dream. Let's see, what's this one about now? You know how brothers are. If you've had brothers, you know, or siblings, and you see that. So the dream said that not only his brothers bowed down, but his parents, of course. However, the wives, we said, of Jacob, you know, are under, you know, kind of like a stepmother to Joseph, because his mother, Rachel's gone, and we see it, and they would be with this. So by this time, even his father now is going to have enough. I mean, this is interesting, because Jacob's the one that's put him in this position, Israel, we would say, and now his father's going to get upset with it, because he doesn't have a problem with his brothers doing this, but do you think Jacob wants to answer to his son? He don't want to answer to his son. So let's go and see what he says here. Once again, verse 10, let's read it again. So we'll read that for us, please.
And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth?
So he's like, you really think all of us are going to bow down to you? But let me ask you this, brethren. Does that happen?
Yes.
It truly does. We'll look at that in just a second. So Joseph, you know, what happens here is Joseph doesn't realize the damage these dreams are causing. He doesn't see his grandma. Once again, how old is he? He's 17. I mean, you know, the brain's still growing up here in the front at that age. And, you know, so the damage that he was doing to himself by these dreams, notice, not the damage to the family, but he was doing damage to himself in a sense because of what his brothers were thinking. But he was excited. That's all it was. He was excited about this information and was being revealed to him, and his brother hated him for it, which brings us, we just read that a minute ago, Genesis 37:8. But now notice this verse again. Notice 37 verse 11 that we've already read early at the beginning.
And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
That's interesting. So now his brothers are envying him. In other words, his brothers want to be what? They want to be Joseph. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They want to be Joseph. And when you hear this word, kept the matter in his mind, it means it's kind of like the word pondering. You know, he was just thinking about it for a while, trying to, you know, figure out why is this being done like this. Remember, Jacob was a godly man. We know that and understand that and realize that. And he may have started thinking that, you know, is God giving him these? You know, what's going on here? What's taking place? And all that happening. So, with all that being the case, that's pretty much verses 1 through 11. But let's just talk for a moment about these dreams being fulfilled. And we understand that those who believe that Joseph was, you know, an egotistical young man and mad and angry, you know, just you know, that's not it at all. That's not what he's like. I want you to fall down in front of me, and that's what you're going to do. I don't even think he was thinking that that would ever happen. You know, he wasn't in that point of his life. He didn't realize this. He just thought it was a dream. Mom, go ahead.
When you said maybe he's thinking, you know, was God giving these to him, that was exactly what I was wondering. Did they know, his brothers and his dad, did they know that these were coming from God, and did Joseph know?
The Bible doesn't tell us. No, Joseph didn't know at this time either. And the brothers don't believe it, I don't think, at that point. And that's where I believe we see Jacob, that it's turning around his head. And as we get further into the story, it seems like Jacob did know. You know, well, first it takes him a little while to realize this, but Jacob doesn't see what God sees, the whole picture. You know, none of them do. They don't see the long run of this. And remember, this is all done to protect his family. That's what it's all for. All this happening is to protect his family. And not only his family, to bring about, though, Jesus, we would see through all this. And it's important to understand what Joseph is doing and what he's going through is what will need to be done to bring Jesus into the world through what God would have it done in His way. Bill, go ahead.
Another example, that in a moment when something happens, like if I was one of the brothers, the older brothers, I didn't agree with it, I didn't understand it. In due time, they found out the enormous benefit to their family. So sometimes when we have setbacks, we need to think, I do not understand this, but I trust God.
Yep.
And I shall keep His commandments, and it shall be revealed to me or not in due time. And it was.
That's exactly right. And you know, it was many, many, many years later, of course,
Yes.
but when that finally came about, exactly what it did to them, and thanking God, from that point, we see that. And there was a lot of forgiveness going on, and a lot of sorries, and a lot of thank yous, and it's just remarkable. But let's go back, let's jump to this real quick. Here's the fulfillment. We look in Genesis 42, verse 6, and also in Genesis 44, 14. 42, 6 deals with the brothers. Someone go and read that for us, please. And it goes to that point we're just speaking of right here, where when Joseph was actually in charge of, saving basically all the land. And so someone go and read that, please.
Now Joseph was governor over the land, and it was he who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth.
There we go. Now, I doubt at this point that they're remembering yet, but it's, all that way back. But it's going to show up. It's going to come up, later we're going to understand. And the next one, I'll go ahead and read the next one also. Genesis 44, verse 14, please.
So Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there, and they fell before him on the ground.
So here's where it all ends with. We see it coming to this point. God knows the beginning and the end. God knows all that, and we see that. And so this, it basically, we need to understand that it's not something, how do I say it? People were looking at Joseph kind of destroying his family from within, doing these things, but that's not what happened at all. That's not what happened at all. It was and his brothers, after they get rid of him, and they think, some of them are happy, others are sad about it, upset about it, mad about it. His dad goes crazy over it, and it's just a remarkable, feat how God uses all this for His purpose. It doesn't matter what goes on in this world, God is going to use it for His glory, and that's how we have to see it, as bad as things may be from time to time. Bill, go ahead.
Several thousand years later, Jesus told us and taught us, don't seek revenge, turn the other cheek. And He tells us that, not in the abstract, but this is a real life principle of Joseph having if he had been a worldly man, every reason in the world to smite his brothers and do it with him knowing who he was. And he didn't do it. He cried and loved them and took care of them.
That's exactly right. Remember, his dad thought he was dead. His brothers knew he'd gone, been sold away. They probably thought he was dead at that point, and just, no one would have ever, and Joseph, so that's exactly, Joseph could have gone like, I don't have anything to do with my family. But that's not the way Joseph was. I mean, remember, while he was there, the butler, the baker, Pharaoh, all these dreams that he's having again, and fixing things and taking care of things. Dad, go ahead.
No, you just said it.
Okay, all right. So, with all that there. So, that's what we see. So, let's go into some questions real quick. I want us to just get an idea. I don't know if you can read that wide. Yeah, okay, I can't read it back there. The questions to kind of see if everybody was listening. That's the best way to look at it. And what this does, see, like I'm saying, hopefully you've noticed everything we talked about. Very simple, but it lets you, a lot of things stick in your mind, and it keeps you, gives you a lot about the history of Joseph real quick. So the very first question is, name the land where Jacob's family lived. Genesis 37:1.
The land of Canaan.
Land of Canaan, that's exactly right. The land of Canaan. Okay, say, it's the land of Canaan. Well, wait a minute, Ernie, you removed it off the map. Where is the land of Canaan, folks? 1, 2, or 3? Everyone agree with 2? Everyone agree? Come on, everyone agree or not? No, that's too early? All right, everyone agree. All right, it is 2. Yes, definitely, without a doubt. And you're going to see, I'm going to do that from time to time. The reason this is important, when we get to our time when we will, basically everybody will come in here together. It'll be on a Wednesday night, and we'll go over everything. We play a Jeopardy game, and one of the Jeopardy games we look at is maps. And when the maps come up, guess what's not on them? Any of the words. It's numbers. And, and we get to find out, see how well we remember where they are. And you'll be shocked how much your little ones know. It's amazing how we see that. Let's go on to the next question real quick. How did Jacob show that his favorite son was Joseph?
Made him a coat of many colors.
Made him a coat of many colors. That's exactly right. And we see that. Third question. How old was Joseph when he brought his father the bad report about his brothers? 17. Very important to understand. 17. Next question. Well, see 17. Next question. What age? Here it is. And this is a question. We'll see if you get it right. See how well everybody was paying attention. What age was Jacob when he made Joseph the special coat? Anybody got an idea? Besides you adults, what was that, Bill? Everyone agree with that? Didn't it say his age? Didn't it say that he was 83? Did it say it? Let's see what it says. Oh, yeah, you're right. Of his old age. It doesn't give us an age. You know, that's always one of those, trick questions, I guess you'd say. And then the last three is, how did Joseph's brothers feel about their father's show of favoritism to Joseph? They hated him. That's exactly right. All about hate. And then we see this one. Describe Joseph's two dreams. Oh, someone go ahead and describe the two dreams real quick. You can do it real fast.
The sheaves that rose up, and the other sheaves bowed to him, and then the other was the sun, moon, and stars.
Exactly right. And bowing down, that's exactly it. And that's what we see here in this picture. You get kind of an idea of it, of what we find. And then the final one, what did Joseph's dreams mean? What did they mean? Anybody remember? So let's look at the first one. The first one right here, the one with the sheaves. What did it mean? That his brothers would bow down to him. It's very simple. It's not a trick question. This is really simple. And then the second dream basically tells us that who would bow down to him?
Dad,
Everyone, but the dad, moms, and all the brothers, and we would see that. So guess what? We are at 10:45. Bam! I'm done, just like that. How did that work out? All right, so able to get through the class. I guess you kind of see this is how it will go. It moves pretty quick, and it gets really hard when they want you to go over 2 or 3 chapters. It just never works. All right, so but we'll see how it goes. So any other comments or questions before we close? Ring the bell. That's it. All right.
We'll be starting here where we left off Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, we'll start off right here, exactly. We'll start off with verse 12 on Wednesday night, and we'll move on. And that's what we'll do each time until we finish Joseph up, and then we'll jump into another area. We'll just move around throughout the Bible. And so hopefully you saw with the way the questions are, with everything, memory work is just going to be remarkable what you get out of it. A lot of this you'll already know. Some of it you won't, and so it's fun with that. Bill?
But it will be lesson 2.
It'll be lesson 2.
Okay.
Wednesday is lesson 2. We just keep moving lesson 2. Sunday will be 3, and Wednesday will be 4. We just keep moving through them. Exactly right. And all right, so we'll end there. Thanks.
Hey, no. How you doing?
Good morning. How you doing there, Doctor? Doing good, doing good. You have a good week? I'm blessed. I'm not gonna lie.
I know you are.
He don't get me in trouble.
I know it's not.
Thank you.
On that. Oh, that'd be a good yeah, well, it's in the book, actually. That's one of the classes. Yeah, no, it's actually, it didn't be like a lesson number or whatever. So, but no, I think that would be a nice lesson. I like that.
Yesterday must have been a slower day. I think what it is
Well, that's right.
I think maybe
Takes real far.
that's what kills me. It'll go back up. That's what kills me sometimes.
You're talking all the time.
It's not just 2 or 3 here missing. You know, always down.
Well, I used to look at it that way when I was real busy. I was